Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Friends and Fiction Show. I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
And I'm Patti Callahan Henry.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times best-selling authors, endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, and librarians. On this week's show, Patti and I are thrilled to welcome Rhys Bowen to discuss her new novel, The Rose Arbor. The book was just released yesterday on August 6th, and we're so excited to speak to Rhys about it. And, you know, Patti and I are both coming to you remote.
Yes.
I'm up in Bar Harbor, Maine on vacation. And Patti, where are you?
I am in North Carolina, kind of near Hiawassee, visiting my college roommate and best friend. So the miracle of StreamYard and Zoom, well, Rhys is all the way across the country in California. So this is going to be so much fun. Okay, first we have a quick reminder for all of you. Before we talk about the Rose Arbor and get to bring Rhys on, we want to remind you about all the amazing things going on in our Friends and Fiction community at friendsandfiction.com.
And that is where you will find our show schedule, details on upcoming in-person events, and we do have some fun ones coming up this fall, and links to our bookshop.org page, to the Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa, to our merch store and our newsletter sign up. In other words, if you want to know more about anything Friends and Fiction offers, and we offer a lot, be sure to check out friendsandfiction.com.
Or freck out. We could freck it out.
That's a new word.
That's a new one.
I got it here in Maine, freck out.
Yeah, I'd love to join you for one of those.
Yeah.
So I also want to talk to y'all about our Substack because it's incredible. It's just a fancy name for our newsletter, but we send out weekly posts on the website and in an app and in a newsletter. They will land in your inbox so you never miss a thing, but it is so much bigger than an email newsletter. For paid subscribers, we have just unbelievable, incredible content, including deeper dives with our weekly show guests. They do Q&As. They tell us things we don't talk about on the show. We have monthly roundtable discussions. Kristin and I recently did a 4-parter with 13 authors on writing World War II fiction. Mary Kay and Kristy recently did one with Ellen Hilderbrand, Nancy Thayer, and Brooke Lee Foster about beach reads. Ron and I have one coming up about libraries, librarians, and all the things you think you know about it, but you don't. It costs us $5 a month or $50 a year for the paid subscription. You can always start free and upgrade. So check us out at friendsandfiction.substack.com.
Okay, now let's welcome our friend Rhys Bowen. Rhys is the New York Times bestselling author of 2 historical mystery series, as well as the #1 Kindle bestseller in Farley Field and numerous other international bestsellers.
Her work has sold, I don't even want to say this number because, come on. Her work has sold close to 10 million copies in over 30 languages. She has been nominated or won every major mystery award. Agatha, Anthony McCavity.
And as a child, Rhys spent time with relatives in Wales. Those childhood experiences colored her first mystery series about Constable Evans in the mountains of Snowdonia. She wrote 10 books in the series, including the Edgar nominee Evans Gate. I want to go to Snowdonia right now when it's hot in August.
I want to go to Snowdonia and get in a small stone cottage and put a fire in the fireplace. Want to do it?
Yeah, maybe we'll take up knitting.
Okay. Could you see us? Anyway, there would never be a blanket with more holes than the one you and I knitted together. Rhys has lived in England, Germany, and Australia, but she has called California home for a long time now. She escapes to a condo in Arizona during cold California winters. And when she's not writing, Rhys loves to travel, sing, hike, paint, play the Celtic harp. And we're going to talk about some of this and spoil her grandchildren.
Her new novel, The Rose Arbor, was just released yesterday, and this haunting novel of suspense follows an investigation into a girl's disappearance, which uncovers a mystery dating back to World War II. Sean, can you bring Rhys on?
Hi, Rhys.
Hey. Hi.
So good to see you. We're going to have to talk a little. When I told Rhys before the show started that I was in Bar Harbor, she told us a quick story about going to Bar Harbor to eat lobster on a wharf and instead buying a harp, right?
Yeah.
Right. Rhys, welcome, friends in fiction. We're so glad to have you. Patti and I both adored The Rose Arbor because I think it hit us both in our particular sweet spots. Yeah. I love the mystery, the romance, and the atmospheric evocation of a long abandoned village, Tyndham, on the south coast of England. And of course, as a recovering newspaper reporter or a failed newspaper reporter, I loved your protagonist, Liz Hutton. Is it Hutton?
Houghton.
Houghton. Liz Houghton is a struggling reporter.
Yeah.
I adored visiting Tideham, and my other favorite thing, hearing about lost to time pieces of history. The evacuation of children from London, which I've also written about, and the evacuation of a town for military purposes. I had no idea. So Mary Kay just gave us the big picture of the Rose Arbor. But let's talk about if there's anything you want to add to that. And then what we love to ask is, what is it really about?
Yeah. Well, hi, everybody. Yeah, it's what's it really about? The reason I wrote it is that a couple of years ago, the Sunday Times did a feature piece on one of these abandoned villages. The real one's called Tyneham is the real one. I've just, I changed it a bit because, and they had these pictures of the one main street and the ruins that could be hundreds of years old with creepers over them and a tree growing out of what used to be a living room. And I thought people lived here. People had lived here for centuries. And then one day somebody came to them and said, you have 3 weeks to get out. And that really happened. They had to pack up all their things. They had to go. And now all that's left is the church and the churchyard with these gravestones among the high weeds. And you think how terribly sad that was, that they had to leave their whole tradition and everything. And of course, being a mystery writer, I immediately thought, oh, what if something really bad happened there? But because nobody was allowed back, nobody would ever find out. So that sparked the mystery. So what is it about? It's about secrets and links, how one thing you find out about one thing leads you to another thing. It was like writing a jigsaw puzzle because we have several different cases going on at the same time. And what we find out, a tiny thing we find out about one makes us look at another. And so, it's all about what we think we know and what we don't know.
And the spider web of how everything's connected once you get in there. Yeah.
Now you pull one little thread and all of a sudden, your protagonist, Liz, let's talk about her. Her world starts to unravel. Now, Liz is from an upper class family. She's determined to make her own way in the world of journalism in post-World War II London, battling sexism both in the newsroom and on the streets, as well as overprotective parents. And the book opens, what year is it again?
1968. Right.
It opens in 68. Where did Liz come? Where did she come from? Is she an extension of Rhys?
Well, I was around in 1968.
I was too.
I was too.
Well, the funny thing about that is this is now a historical novel. So ladies, we are all historical figures. Isn't that good?
Yes, we're historical figures. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. So one of my first readers said to me, she said, I think this is your best book. It feels so real. And I said, well, I was there. I was in London. I was fresh out of college. I was working for the BBC. I had my Mary Quant outfit and my Vidal Sassoon haircut and my white boots. I was
I had some white go-go boots.
yeah. It's funny when my kids saw a photo of me, they said, "Why did you throw those boots away?" And
I was just going to ask that. I'd like to see those now.
yeah. No, so I was there and I saw that transition, which we see in the book, from this very like preppy mod feeling to the world, very optimistic, moving to the hippie world, in which people were, first of all, to start with, they were protesting, save the whales, save the forests. And then as it got more into drug culture, they were more tuning out. And you're getting kids who are taking over buildings and just hanging out and doing nothing. So it was interesting in clothing. You know, I was wearing these short skirts and even my hot pants, and suddenly they're wearing the flowing robes and the flowing hair and peace and all that sort of thing. So it was a huge switch from one to the other.
Yeah.
So do you think Liz came from you at all?
Probably did. I was probably going to be a journalist until I came out of college. I edited the college newspaper, and I liked that a lot. And I think what happened was I saw a clip on television about a woman who had come home to find her husband had killed their 3 children and himself. And they're standing there with a microphone saying, you know, "How did you feel?" And I thought, I couldn't do that. You know, I could write nice op-ed women's magazine type pieces. I could not do that sort of journalism, and I went into someone's life and I tapped into their sorrow and grief. I thought I couldn't do that. Yeah. So luckily I got into the BBC, and I had much more fun because I was in BBC drama and I was working with all these fabulous people on fabulous plays. So that was really good.
That's awesome. All right. So the plot does involve missing children, and that always tugs at our heart. Mm-hmm. But the theme of motherhood and what a woman is capable of doing in pursuit of her missing child was really intriguing. So will you talk to us about the approach that you took to motherhood in this novel and what we would do?
Yeah, I think that the interesting question in this book is, what is a mother? Who is a mother? Because everything we think we know about motherhood is unraveled as we go through the book, and the mothers in the book. There are some mothers who will fiercely do anything to protect their child, and there are other mothers who will abandon their child. So you've got all these different aspects of motherhood, but there's not one that's straightforward in the whole book. I think there's a mother who's grieving. There's a mother who is fiercely protecting. There is a mother who is abandoning. You know, we run the gamut of motherhood in this book.
The multifaceted subject of mothers. It's never ending fodder for novels. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Right. All right. The 4 of us who co-founded Friends in Fiction, we started as authors who happened to be friends. In fact, I was saying earlier, I met you years ago through a group of mystery writers called Sisters in Crime. Mm-hmm. But we know that you have a group of longstanding friends, author friends, called the Jungle Reds, who have meant so much to you personally and to your long and prolific career. Would you talk about that?
Oh, yes. Well, we have a blog called Jungle Red Writers, and we post every day. It's quite a big commitment because we each host a week, and then but every day we're supposed to come in and comment and everything else. This is a professional blog that people read, and it's amazing how many people read it. You know, we get up to 1,000 visitors a day, and we have the same commenters. But then some publisher will say to me, "Oh, I really like that piece you did on so-and-so." And you think, "Oh my God, these people read it and I don't even know about it." But we've become over the years a sisterhood, just the same as you 4 have. We are the biggest support to each other. We've gone through difficult times. You know, it's Hank Philippi Ryan, Hallie Efron, Lucy Burdett, Jen McKinley, Julia Spencer Fleming, and Deborah Crombie and me. So we really stretch across the gamut of mystery writing, from the quite, Hallie's suspense novels to Jen's fun cupcakes and things. So it's kind of fun that we cover all bases, but we've really become really supportive. Hallie lost her husband a couple of years ago, and Julia lost her husband, and we've been the backup group for each other, and we chat every day, as I'm sure you do. And today, actually, yesterday, Julia had a new knee put in, so we've been cheering her on. She feels wonderful at the moment, but I think that's the oxycodone working.
I was going to say, Kathy just got her knee replaced not long ago too.
No, it'll be 2 years in September.
Oh my gosh, Kathy.
Yeah.
Mary Kay, that does not feel like 2 years ago.
Yeah, we did a little hike yesterday, and I told my husband a year ago I never would have attempted this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So it worked well, did it? Did it go well?
Yeah, it went great. Yes, it went really well. And yes, I made a recovery, and I'm on the other side of it, and I'm happy to be on the other side of it.
Yeah, right.
Well, to have that kind of friend group in this crazy business, there's nothing that means more. And I love that the four of us write very different books too.
Yeah.
So when we're chiming in, and I'm sure y'all do this about titles or plot points or frustrations, we're not telling them the way we would do it because our books are so different. So we're just trying to help them do it their way. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a very ribbled when I contribute, ribbled and fun text chain going at all times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so healthy. It's great to get out frustrations. Someone will say, "Do you know what this review said? I cannot believe this review."
Yes.
And and we sort of say, "It's only one person's opinion. Forget it." And they're a frustrated writer. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But and the interesting thing to me, when I first became a mystery writer, which was in 1997, having written other things, I'd written young adult and things. I suddenly found this wonderful community.
Yes.
And you talked, Mary Kay, you talked about Margaret Maron earlier. And she was one of the first people who reached out to me and said, "I've just read your book and I love it." And she said, "If you come to my part of the world, let me tell you which bookshops." And I thought, this is a distinguished writer, and she's writing to a first-time novelist. And that's been the way ever since, that everybody is more than helpful. You go to a town to do a book signing, and you look up and 2 other authors have come to your book signing. So
amazing.
It's amazing because it doesn't exist in the romance community. I know they stab each other in the back quite happily, and and I don't think it happens in other. It just happens. Maybe it's because we kill people on the page quite often, and we get.
I think it's personality. I don't think it's genre. I just think it's finding your people.
We all are in that women's fiction space.
Yes.
Different corners of the women's fiction space. And I think women, to me, are very collaborative. We're very collegial. Margaret did the same for me when I was first published. I used to tell her she was my mystery mama, taking new writers under our wing. And she used to give me the best advice, and I still miss her. But I think that's a wonderful thing about working in this creative space.
It is, yeah. Because, when you're a writer, it's a very lonely profession.
Yeah.
You could sit in your little room and you have no feedback at all until your agent actually looks at it. So to have friends when you're saying, "I'm really stuck in the middle of this, can I send it to you to read?" And they read it and say, "Oh yes, well, why have you got the person doing so?" And you go, "Oh, that's a good idea." And then, then you're off again. So it saved thousands on therapy, I think.
Yes, we agree. We agree. So just for everybody out there, as a reminder, the blog is called Jungle Reds. So y'all go check it out.
Jungle Red Writers. Yeah.
Jungle Red Writers.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk about your career has been absolutely stellar and amazing. I mean, 10 million books in print, but I want to go backwards a little bit. Mm-hmm. I really want to talk a little bit about your past in England, but a very specific part. When you were a folk singer in pubs, including you've sang with Simon and Garfunkel, according to our mutual agent, Meg Bruley. Yeah. So we must know about this. And it was it before you started writing or during the time you were writing?
It was before I started writing
Okay.
books. I was working in BBC drama in London, and I'd be working on a play, and I'd think, oh, if I wrote this play, I wouldn't have ended it that way. So one day I sat down and wrote a play, and with the bravado of a 22-year-old, I walked down the hall to the head of drama, and I said, I've written this play. And a few days later, he called me in and he said, yes, we really like this. We're going to do it. So that was my first piece of professional work. So I was working for the BBC and hoping to write more plays. But in the evenings, I was writing and singing folk songs. It was the time of folk clubs. There were a lot of really good folk clubs. And I became very good friends with Al Stewart, who you might know from The Year of the Cat, etc.
Yeah.
And through him, I went to sing at a club called Bungees, and Al and I would sing there on Friday nights. And he was sharing a house with Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel, and a couple of other. They were all like folk singers in a big house together, and so. Paul and Archie, afterwards we'd go to this sort of late night Middle Eastern cafe at 2 a.m. and sit and have coffee and whatever they were cooking. And so Paul and Archie were there. They hadn't become famous at this stage. Paul was doing things like singing. His songs were on the religious program at 10 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, I was there to witness history, because late one night, they came in and they said, we've come to say goodbye. We're going back to America. Our agent just called us, and this song we've written called Sounds of Silence seems to be doing quite well. So we have to go back. So we all said goodbye and off they went. So that was my moment in history.
Oh my gosh, I have little chill bumps. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That's some moment in history.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the most fabulous things I can imagine professionally would be to see my work on the stage or screen. Now, you've had a play produced of your children's book, right? And as well as been on. Now, you've also read your work since that time on the BBC, or was that back in the day?
No, I haven't read my work since then on the BBC. That was back in the day. But the children's play was absolutely wonderful. I got a request. I'd like to turn this book called Septimus Bean and His Amazing Machine. We'd like to turn this into a play. And I thought, oh, how very nice. And I pictured some little hut somewhere, and then when I found out it's the Children's National Theatre in London.
Oh my gosh.
It's this beautiful, huge, beautiful, lovely building with lots of glass and steel and everything. And I went to one of the first performances, and it was amazing. It was, first of all the audience was children. And so when people on the stage did things like they were working on this thing that gets blown up bigger and bigger, and all the children are sitting there going, it's going to pop, it's going to, and it's about this man who invents this incredibly crazy machine. And he doesn't know what it's for. And everybody has these suggestions as to what it might do. And the suggestions get crazier and crazier. And then finally, the king says that you've invented a flying machine, and it takes off, and off it goes. And what they did in the theatre, they had it crash through the doors. And then there's this big screen above, and you can see it on the screen flying through the corridors in the theatre. And of course, the kids are all like this. And then you see it coming down, and you hear this awful crash. And then the kids all sit there like this. And then the king comes in and he says, you have to come and see this. And they open the doors to the foyer, and there supposedly are all the bits of machine that have turned into a playground. So the kids all rush out and they climb over the slide and everything. So it was the most amazing experience. It was just fantastic. But right now, I do have a really nice piece of news, in that my Royal Spinus series has just been optioned by a fabulous company in England. The company that they make the original Ghosts, and they did Harlot, and they've done a whole lot of really famous big things. And I'm tomorrow morning. Earlier than this, I've got a conference call where we talk about the writer who's going to write the pilot script. So it's it's very exciting. I'd love to see that. The Royal Spinus series is very visual, I think, and funny. So I think it would go very well on TV.
Wow,
my
you
gosh,
heard it
that's
here first,
exciting.
everybody.
Yeah,
Breaking news on Friends and Fiction Show. Rhys,
yeah.
that's really, I mean, we all talk about it, and we don't write the books, or I don't, and I know Mary Kay usually don't, imagining them on a screen, but when the work is done and it exists in the world, to see it come out like the Royal Spinus or even a children's play, to see it in a different creative expression just would be astounding. And I think that's really cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, we all know, I'm sure we've all had options and you get very excited and they don't lead
And then
to it.
nothing happens. Yeah.
So my theory is if I turn on the TV one day and it's there, then I finally believe it. But,
Yes.
you get really close sometimes.
Exactly right.
Someone a few years ago bought the first book called Her Royal Spinus for what they called a major motion picture. But they went through 3 scripts and several incarnations. And then the person who'd actually acquired it moved to another company and it fell apart. So, this happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
I'm trying not to be too hopeful, but they are so enthusiastic and they actually have so much clout that I think that, it might well happen. Wouldn't that would be such fun? Because
we're going to come to the premiere with you.
All right. Yeah. Because, often there's a downside to this too. What if it's bought by somebody and it comes out not at all how you like it or imagine it, then you're stuck with a very different concept of what you've written. So but this is, they're English and they do lovely things and I'm sure they will do a great job with it.
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah.
All right. As if you aren't creative enough, I've heard that you aren't creative just with writing and music. I've heard that you also love to sketch and that you carry a sketchbook everywhere you go. So does that ever open up a story idea for when you travel, or is it just for fun? And I believe some of your sketches have ended up in one of your novels, correct?
Well, what Lake Union does is that they have a lovely inside the dust cover.
Oh,
That is
Rhys, that you sketched that? That's not a sketch. That's a piece of art. That's amazing. Show it again. Hold it up for a sec.
okay.
That is beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I take my, the reason I sketch is that it becomes so much more personal than taking a photo. When I look at a sketchbook again, I can remember exactly where I was and, where I was sitting in the square and what was happening around me. It sort of brings everything to life again. So I'm never going to be a great artist, but I love doing that because it really does. It captures that moment very well. So the sketchbook comes everywhere with me.
Does it ever open up a story idea or give you a story idea? I mean, I know you drew some sketches for the book, but have you ever sketched something on your travels and it's been like, boom, that's a great story idea?
I must go through and look and see if it, yeah. I know one thing that really happened to me that was amazing that I've never managed to get into a story yet, but we were in Kashmir years ago, and of course you can't go there anymore. And we were up in the high pastures where there were these nomad children, and as we drove past, the little girls would pull their veils over their face. Anyway, so we stopped, and I got out, and there was a stream there with these little white pebbles, and I sat down and I took one of the pebbles and I drew a face on it, and then I put it down. And then I took another pebble the little boys came over and one of them looked at it and I drew a face and I handed it to him. And within 5 minutes, all those children were surrounding me. They were all holding their hands out for the next face and they were all laughing. And the little girls no longer had their veils anywhere, and that sort of thing. That was one of my travel experiences that will always be close to my heart all my life, because, that was a real contact made with people who wouldn't otherwise have dared to contact me. So, things like that. I love to travel and things like that do happen a lot. And who knows, perhaps I'll write a book about Kashmir one day. It certainly was wonderful.
What a connection.
Yeah.
What a connection. You wouldn't have the same language. They wouldn't have even looked you in the eye.
No,
but
they would.
that you,
run away.
yeah.
Too bad you didn't have
Amazing.
your harp with you. You could have.
Well, I didn't have the harp at that time. That was a fairly recent thing, and that you're in Bar Harbor, and I got the harp in. It was poor. We drove from Montreal to Bar Harbor just to eat lobster on a dock. And when we got there, it was pouring with rain so hard that you didn't want to be outside. So we're walking along, and I saw this book, this shop. I'm sure it's still there, that has like folk instruments from all over the world. So I went in. And John kept on walking. I went in, and by the time he found out where I was sitting playing this Celtic harp. And I said, "I'm going to buy this," and I did.
Had you ever played it before, or was that just a whim?
No. I play the piano and the guitar, so in fact, it really wasn't that hard to learn. And it's not the huge harp with, it's enough for me
the Celtic harp. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's lovely. It has a lovely sound, and it sits in my office, and then when I'm stuck, I turn around and play a little tune, and then I feel much better.
Your creative energy is such a bright light, Rhys. That's amazing.
It really is. When I get frustrated and blocked, I put my head gently on the desk and bang it repeatedly until something.
I was wondering where this was going because I knew there was not a Celtic harp in your office.
If I tried to play if I had one, and if I tried to play it, my husband would be worried that I was strangling cats.
Actually, it's you can't really go wrong. Even if you just run your hand up it just sounds really sweet. And so
that's awesome.
I feel soothed just hearing you talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, Rhys, if you'd stick around, we have another question for you. But first, a few quick reminders to the listeners and viewers out there.
For all of you watching and listening, we encourage you to rush out right now at this very second and buy your copies of The Rose Arbor. After talking about Tidum and the characters and the missing children, I don't know why you wouldn't. And the perfect place to do that is in the Friends and Fiction shop on bookshop.org. So if you go to our website and you click on Bookshop, you'll go right there. You'll be getting it at a discount and helping to fund our show, all while supporting our guests and, of course, our beloved independent booksellers nationwide.
We also want to remind you to follow us on Instagram and join our Facebook group, which is 250,000 members strong. They keep telling us that it's 249,000. That's a lie. It's way over that. Yeah. Anyway, when you visit friendsandfiction.com, you can stay up to date about everything we have going on, and you can sign up for our weekly email newsletter, which is chock full of bonus content. And that's our Substack letter that Patti referred to earlier.
Yep. You're up, MKA.
Oh, that's right. I am. When we discussed who we were going to have on the show, Kristy Woodson Harvey, that is, said, "Oh, you have to ask her." Kristy used to be obsessed with the Babysitters Club. So we must ask you, tell us about writing for the Babysitters Club series.
No, not Babysitters Club, Sweet Dreams.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, well, tell us about that.
Yeah, it all happened completely by accident. I was writing children's picture books, and I got an agent, and one day she called me and said, "Could you write me a teenage novel in a hurry?" And I said, "I don't know." And so she said, "Well, I need 3 chapters by next Tuesday." So I went to the store and I brought home, there were not many teenage books. In those days, it went straight from reading children's books to adult books. And this was when they were first bringing out paperbacks that kids could afford with their allowances very easily. So I brought home the books and I spread them in front of me and I was looking at them. And my husband walked behind me and he said, "You don't write that sort of thing." So a little voice inside me said, I've never been known to back from a challenge. Yeah. So I did write the 3 chapters. I was given the go-ahead to finish the book. I didn't know who it was for. It turned out it was going to be one of the books that Bantam was going to use to launch the series called Sweet Dreams. Wow. So that was the first really popular teenage series. We'd go through a printing of 100,000 in a week.
Oh my gosh.
It was just, and so suddenly I'm on this teenage treadmill. I have my agent saying, "Well, I promised Doubleday that that you'd do a book for Fawcett after you've done 4 books for band, and it was like,
Oh my gosh.
literally, I was, as fast as I could write, they would grab them. And that was wonderful, because actually my husband had just been laid off from his job of 20 years. And so we had kids either in college or coming up for college. So I wrote an awful lot. And they were fun. And as I say, to start with, they sold incredibly well. The numbers went down as everybody else jumped on the bandwagon. We had Sweet Valley High, the Babysitters Club, all these others came up. But they were very good to me for quite a few years. And then I got to the stage where I felt I'd said everything I wanted to say about having a boyfriend and losing a boyfriend and going to the prom and not going to the prom, and so that was when it finally struck me, why am I not writing what I read? And I was always a mystery reader from day one. But then I read those books, all of those Golden Age ladies, and they were fun. They were great escapism, but they never touched you emotionally. Nobody ever wept for The Body in the Library. No. And it wasn't until I discovered Tony Hillerman.
Oh, gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, that opened my eyes to not only a mystery, but also a mindset of a completely different people. And what he did, he took you somewhere. He took you to a different place so vividly that when we first went to the Southwest, I'm sitting beside my husband, and I am the tour guide. I'm saying, you see over there, that shiprock, and you look at that ledge, that's where the body fell from, I knew everything. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to write books that take people somewhere, that make them think, oh my God, I've been transported to 1901 or, or to Wales or wherever. So that's my aim, I think, in all of my books, is never to tell you about a particular place and time, but to make you feel that's what it was like to be there.
I know, especially with the Rose Arbor, you've exceeded your original goal.
Oh, thank you.
Would you tell us, Rhys, where you're going to be on tour, or where you are on social media, so people can catch up with you?
I'm not touring. I'm not touring for this. We really don't tour much. I've done it in August, and it turns into Rhys's very hot tour. I went from Las Vegas to Phoenix to Houston, which was not exactly thrilling in August. But I'm doing a lot of online things this afternoon. I'm doing an event with Cozy's Conversations and More, which is another Facebook group. I'm doing Renee's Reading Club, another Facebook group, on the 13th. I am doing I'm doing a Zoom presentation with Poison Pen Bookstore, and they have. I sat and signed all these cartons of books for them the other day, so they have plenty of signed books if you want one. So it's the poisonpen.com bookstore, and that will be on the 7th. So the same time as this comes out, the 7th at 6 p.m. And I think I'm doing quite a few more interviews, but I don't know when they're all going to be. They all blur into one at this stage.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yesterday evening, and it's like, I said to John, sometimes I've done 3 Zooms in a day, and I say to him, my cheeks hurt. Yeah. Because, you have to look interested all the time. You can't sit like this on a Zoom, And at the end of the day, your cheeks hurt.
Well, hopefully from laughing with us. Hopefully.
Well, yeah. Well, it's always good. Laughter is always really good. I love it.
Yep.
And tell us, if you would, where people can find you on social media.
Yes. Well, my website is rhysbowen.com, and on that you can sign up for my newsletter, which I have to confess is not the most regular newsletter. It comes out about 6 times a year, but then I am on Facebook, and it's Rhys Bowen Author. That's my page. But I also have a private group now, because, as you know, on a page you get lots of very strange men from Africa and Asia who want to come and marry you and live in your house.
Yes.
So I now have a private group called Tea with Rhys.
Oh,
And
nice.
and we also have the Jungle Red Writers has a private group called Reds and Readers. So between those, we have some really fun chats going on all the time. So
I
I'd
bet.
love to see you on those. Just come and join.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, thank
joining
you.
tea with Rhys right now. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Thanks so much, Rhys, for being with us today to talk about the Rose Arbor. We love talking to you and hearing about your amazing career. And thank you, for being with us on Friends in Fiction.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very honored to be invited. And I love your books too. I mean, I have to say,
Oh,
Patti,
thank you.
Once Upon a Wardrobe is one of the books that's closest to my heart ever. I've recommended it to so many people. I have to say, you have to read this. So yeah, it
Rhys.
touched heartstrings. It was wonderful.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, what a great way to end. Thank you so much. And everyone out there, be sure to tune in next week when Mary Kay and Kristy will welcome Greer McAllister to discuss her new novel, The 13th Husband. That show will be on the Friends in Fiction Facebook page and YouTube channel on Wednesday, August 14th at 7 p.m. And it will be posted to our podcast on Friday, August 16th.
Thank you, everybody, from all of us here at Friends in Fiction, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.